Come on back in, everyone. Did not realize that my phone had died. You know, piss poor planning sucks. Alright, I'm going to give y'all a second. I did read down the page, but I went back as soon as I got enough juice to see where it had cut off. And you guys are about to freak. Another big name. Very recognizable name. For those who are just joining and wasn't part of part 4, this is part 5 in a series of memoirs by A.B. Ward, a Texas man that lived from 1852 to 1951 and run into an amazing cast of characters with an amazing wealth of history here. Real stories, real history, not your narrative-based history. These are just the stories as told by A.B. to his granddaughter at 90 years of age in 1942 when he sat down and she transcribed all these stories. So it's amazing. And like I said, I missed that it had shut off. So I'm reading down and about fell out of my chair when I seen this next historical figure that is in this collection. You know, if you haven't caught the first 4 episodes, I strongly recommend going back and checking them out. From, you know, Indians kidnapping kids, using them as target practices, to lynching, to riding the Chisholm Trail with Jesse and Frank James. That's exactly what I said. Jesse James. This has been phenomenal, and we haven't even scratched the surface. So, apparently a lot of people are out enjoying the weather today and are not reading history with Smooch. But that's okay. So, hey, all my replay viewers. Hey, YouTube. Hi, POTUS. It's good stuff right here. All right. I'm going to pick up exactly where I left off. So, if you guys need to catch up and go back, fine. If you don't want to watch it now because you want to start from the beginning, no problem. You can catch all the episodes on Periscope, and they have been also uploaded to my YouTube channel, Smooch Panda. Parts 2 and 3 were read together because the Periscope did not save that episode to my phone. So, regardless, I hope you enjoy it, and as much as I have. Alright, let's see if that's going to work. Yeah, I know this shadow sucks, but there ain't a lot I can do about it. There was a certain amount of speculation among us as to why those cattle turned from the herd to follow that side trail, and we thought we had our explanation that night when a man rode into camp and offered to buy the right to search the brush for the strays that might have wandered from the herd. There were no open accusations, but I know the boys thought, as I did, that those 200 head had been deliberately turned from the main herd upon that side trail, and that it was only by accident that we had recovered them. Some settlers along the Chisholm Trail, as well as on the Texas side of the river, were accumulating cattle designated as strays from the trail herds at a rather rapid rate. Hello, Lemon Minty. What up, LA? This is part 5. If you missed part 4, I was reading it up until my phone died. And you're about to be pleasantly surprised because I have found another kick-ass historical figure in this. And matter of fact, I almost fell over. I kind of dropped my phone, and then when I looked up, the phone was black, and I was like, what the? And then I realized that it had died. While I was reading, so, you know, wasn't buffering, just plain dead. But definitely catch the last episode. It's gone from interesting to just phenomenally great reading. All right. The drive across the Indian Territory was uneventful. We did meet one party of friendly Indians. They expected and received the customary beef steer, ran it off from a herd a short distance, and butchered it. The cattlemen did not mind a beef steer occasionally if by that small toll safe passage across the Indian Territory was ensured. It seemed to be a successful method, for none of the outfits I traveled with were ever molested by Indians. Just priests. No, sorry, that's not in there. All right. I haven't uploaded because my phone died, but I will be uploading episode 4 to YouTube. So if Periscope is shit for you like it is for me, then the YouTubes will be there. And you can feel free to share those with everybody if you want. All right. Now, guys, you're going to enjoy this because at the end of this paragraph, shit gets real and makes me real happy. So I hope you enjoy it. The buffalo camp of Caldwell, Kansas, had grown into a thriving little city since my last trip a little more than 2 years before. We skirted Caldwell, driving the herd onto a temporary camp near Wichita, Kansas. Wichita was no longer a mere cowboy trading post. It was a rip-roaring boom town. It had been built upon the cattle business, or rather the marketing of Texas cattle to northern buyers. Thus, many of its population was transients, men who had just finished a long stretch of hard, thirst-producing work and whose pockets were filled with the wages for that labor-ready and anxious for a few days' relaxation. There was only one man in the whole West that could have been city marshal in such a place. That man was Wild Bill Hickok. Wild Bill Hickok. He was the marshal at the time of our arrival. So all these surprises are really nice. First the younger brothers and Frank and Jesse James, and now Wild Bill. So truly a blessing this guy let me borrow this. The cattle were easily handled by the time we struck camp, and 2 or 3 men could ride herd on them, and the rest of us would go into town for fun, and just for the hell of it. That was where I got my first taste of the kind of life that is accepted today as the true Western way. A man's life was worth no more than the powder and shot in his gun. One incident in a saloon soon after our arrival in town convinced me of that. Jim Reed was up with a herd from his ranch below San Antonio, Texas, and was dancing on that occasion with a girl in the saloon when a drunk fell near him. Reed pulled his gun and fired through the board floor near the drunk's head. The scare may not have sobered him, but it did galvanize him into action, for he lost little time in getting out of there. I was standing in the door, resting one shoulder against the jamb, when the caller yelled for all to promenade to the bar and treat their partners. The drunk came up behind me, stuck his head through the door, and called, "Where is Reed?" Reed whirled, but he was too slow to see the drunk as he withdrew his head from the doorway beside me. Seeing no one near the door except me, Reed supposed I had done the yelling. He drew his gun, aimed directly at me, and pulled the trigger. If that gun hadn't snapped, I wouldn't be here telling of the experience now. Snapped? What the hell? I wonder what that means. Maybe broken his hand. Who knows? Jesus. One of the men from our outfit began a real celebration. After visiting several of the saloons and sampling the liquor in each place, he decided to do a little target practicing along the main street. It was not long, however, until his antics and yells of, "I've just come up the Chisholm Trail and ain't found the end of it yet," attracted the attention of the city marshal. Wild Bill Hickok walked up to him and asked if he ever took a drink, and he replied, "I never refused one, but once, and then I wasn't there." "I have the Palace Saloon up the street. Come up and drink with me," invited the city marshal. The unwary celebrator had no opportunity to flee when he arrived at the palace, for Wild Bill booted him in the seat of his pants and sent him sprawling into the jail, before it had fully dawned upon him that he was entering no saloon. As he turned the key in the lock, Wild Bill told his prisoner, "There is the end of your Chisholm Trail." In an incredibly short time, all our money was gone, so we began to look around for some means of accumulating a little whiskey money. We were not long in hitting up upon a scheme. One of our boys was very hairy across his shoulders and chest, so we decided he could pass as a wild man easily enough. The word was circulated over town that we had caught a wild man while crossing the Indian Territory and would bring him into town at a certain time to show him off. We then took our wild man out in the tall grass around camp and practiced him up a bit before leading him into town with ropes tied around his neck and looped over the saddle horns of a couple of the boys. 2 more rode on either side of him to keep the crowd pushed back out of danger, while 2 more came up along with their hats in their hands collecting money from the crowd that lined the street to see our wild man. Our efforts in giving a Wild West show was well paid, as our hat passers collected about $400 by the time we reached the end of Main Street. Our hoax was never discovered, but that money was soon spent also. Sorry for the camera work there, guys. With the shadow, I haven't been paying much attention, and I certainly ain't reading it through it like I typically do. But have no fear. I will do this chapter by chapter with the pages easily read without any interruptions, just the reading. But not now. I'm enjoying this shit way too much. Pretty awesome. I had owned 2 saddle horses when I reached Wichita, but I traded both to a soldier. One was fairly good and valued at $60, while the other was only valued at $30. As a real good saddle horse was highly prized, I felt fortunate in obtaining the soldier's horse in exchange for both of mine. The soldier was deserting the army and did not wish to keep the horse, as it was branded and would be easily identified. Then, as luck would have it, the horse became sick. He was not able to travel 2 or 3 days. He was not able to travel 2 or 3 days later when we decided, rather suddenly, to leave Wichita. I had to leave him behind. So I told Dave Dobson, Jesse James, he could have the horse if it recovered, and he wanted to pay the charges against him at the livery barn. I felt a good saddle and bridle also, but never heard whether or not Dave claimed the horse. I left a good saddle and bridle also, but never heard whether or not Dave claimed the horse. In fact, I never saw the James boys again. I never heard from them until informed of the murder of Howard, who was supposed to be Jesse James. The herd had reached Kansas in such bad condition that it had to be held over until spring before they could be sold. It was finally decided that Bill Hannon and those of the boys that did not wish to return to Texas would keep the herd, and the rest could return to their homes. I learned several years later that Marion Miller lost his herd of cattle, which Bill Hannon was to hold at Wichita for him. Hannon had sold the cattle and left before my cousin arrived the following spring and was never caught. There was a report that went to the Frio Canyon, became involved... There was a report that he went to the Frio Canyon, became involved in an argument over a stolen steer, shot his accuser, and disappeared. At least, I never heard of him again. Marion Miller, sheriff of McCulloch County, and his brothers, Joe, John, Harv, Bill, were cousins of the three Miller men, George, Joe, and Zach, who founded the famous 101 Ranch in Oklahoma. I wonder if Colonel Pillow's familiar with that. Anyway, their fathers and my grandfathers was brothers. After the death of their father, Joe Miller, and the five brothers scattered, leaving McCulloch County. Harv moved to New Mexico, where he was followed shortly by Marion and Bill. Bill did not locate there, but wandered on to Dodge City, Kansas, where he built the hotel. He later moved to the Panhandle, where he set up ranching with the herd he had driven the entire rounds from Texas. One of the men purchased a wagon, and as I was again returning home on foot, I rode with him. He was also furnishing transportation to a dance hall girl from Wichita to Sherman, Texas. The girl left us at Sherman. The rest of the party proceeded to Denton before splitting up. White and I rode his 2 horses to Sulphur Springs, Texas, where his relatives lived. I continued on to Winnsboro. I had been told Mr. Thomason had moved after his and Ma's separation. I had acquired a gun in Wichita and intended to use it to carry out my threat of vengeance against my stepfather for whooping my brother Tom and I. The gun was never used for that purpose, however, as Mr. Thomason died 2 weeks before my arrival in Winnsboro. Returning to Sulphur Springs, I learned that an expedition was being formed at Sherman to hunt buffalo and wolves for their hides at the foot of the Staked Plains. All right, that is the end of 20 pages and 2 chapters. There's almost 70 in here, so we do got a little ways to go. But I do believe that'll be enough for today. Check out the earlier stuff. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, hit that like, hit that subscribe. This is for the YouTube folks. And share it. Hashtag history up in that shit. I think I'm going to start hashtagging like Jesse James and the Younger Brothers and Wild Bill Hitchcock and the people that appear in these stories, so that those people that are interested in those particular people and use that search term, we might get it out to more people. Because, I mean, I understand it's a beautiful day and stuff like that, but I get a lot more freaking views for a bunch of bullshit drama than I do for history. So it's all good. I'm not judging. It's okay. You're here now. It's all good. All right, fam. I certainly appreciate everybody that came in. I'm Smooch Panda. I will be doing probably another 1 or 2 of these perhaps tomorrow. But if you don't see it tomorrow, you'll damn sure see it Tuesday. All right, guys. Have a great day. Enjoy your Sunday. And remember, Trump 2020. It's all that really matters, except for history. History matters, and we need to share it with the youngins. Late. Thanks, y'all. Have a good one. We will see you next time. Smooch out.